Hello there, I'm Jason Ball, and this is Life After News. Simone Boyce was a local news reporter, entertainment reporter, early internet news anchor, and now she hosts a podcast for Reese Witherspoon's company. And she's contemplating a career in comedy. Simone Boyce, it's been a long time. How are you?
I'm doing so well. It's so great to see you. It's been years.
It's been a while. I'm so excited for your success and everything you've been doing. So I want to get right into it. So you worked in local news at KTLA.
Yeah.
You worked at MTV News Access Hollywood, but then I feel like the NBC Signal show, it was an early internet news show. I feel like that was really the turning point in your career.
Yes. I mean, getting the chance to work at 30 Rock, I mean, that's every news nerd's dream, right? Like, I can remember visiting 30 Rock with my parents who were big SNL fans. And so to go there as a kid in middle school and walk through the halls, I was like, wow, this place is so magical. I wonder if I'll ever get to work here one day. And then, I mean, thank God I did. So it really was a dream come true in that sense. And it was a really cool opportunity that brought me into NBC. This really was the beginning of the streaming news world as we know it. You know, there have been so many iterations of it, and I feel like now we're finally seeing more permanent versions of it out there. But basically, I was hired to be the first anchor of this network called NBC News Signal, I think it was. These dang networks change names so many times. There's HBO Max, and then there's Max, and now it's back to HBO Max again. So forgive me, I'm getting the names wrong. But basically, it is what we now know as NBC News Now. So the intention was for it to be this 24/7 live channel that you could connect to through the internet, through your, TV. And what we were also trying to do was to bring a different tone and vibe to it, kind of like a millennial news vibe with explainer pieces and witty monologue segments, which was really fun for me to write. I also tried to bring something new to the dialogue at NBC by creating this segment called Switching Sides, where I would have two talking heads on, and then by the end of their debate, they would have to really place themselves in the other person's shoes ideologically and switch viewpoints for a moment. Because I really, at the time, Jason, felt like, wow, this divide between left and right, red and blue, is only widening and is only getting more and more detrimental by the day. So I was really energized by the idea of trying to reinvent what this type of discourse could look like in news.
Well, that's interesting because it's kind of like debate club in high school or college where you have to pick up an opinion and then you have to be able to argue the other side of it too. How were your guests? Were they down with that?
They actually were. It took some experimentation, and I mean, they're not doing that show anymore, so that tells you how people responded to it. No, but I think the audiences really did like it, but I think at the time it was hard for news executives to wrap their minds around innovative programming that really broke the mold. And when you look at news today, the places where people are really willing to take risks is few and far between. So I was willing to take the risk. My guests were willing to take the risk. But in the end, maybe, you know what? Maybe it was just before its time, Jason. I don't know.
Well, I think that certainly is true. Those early days of experimentation on the internet are fun because I feel like while it was owned and operated by a huge company, it was also probably run sort of like a startup.
Yes, it actually was. It's really funny that you mentioned that because that is the kind of language that we would use every day in our editorial meetings. It was a lot of young kids. Like I don't mean to be any sort of way when I say that. But I actually learned a ton from these kids who are kind of fresh out of college or fresh out of the Page program. I find being around that youthful energy is super energizing and informative. So it really did feel like a startup. There were long days, long nights. We were testing out programming, but man, that feeling of building something is really special when you have the right group of collaborators. And I really did. When I look back at my time at NBC, I can honestly say that I was sharpened by all of the people that I worked around. I was never the smartest person in the room, and that was truly thrilling. So I'm grateful for that experience and for the sensation of being part of a news startup.
Yeah. And I think, it was experimental, and that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to experiment and figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then take
Yeah.
that with you to the next project. These
Yeah.
days, I think we know these days of, working at the same job for 40 years, just those don't happen anymore. So you learned a lot from that, and then you took that to your next thing, right?
Yes. So I worked at NBC News and MSNBC for about 4 years and covered a lot of monumental events, presidential elections, social unrest, the unraveling of women's reproductive rights. So I felt like I had a first front row seat to history in a lot of ways. And then the pandemic happened, and I felt so conflicted, Jason, because I was sitting on my couch. I had just had my baby in March of 2020, my first child. And I'm sitting on the couch watching the chaos unfold in the streets and feeling this longing to be out there. I was on maternity leave at the time. But then that was also coupled with this tension of, I don't know if I can actually thrust myself back into this environment with the same gusto and grit that I had before becoming a mom. So it really was this crossroads for me in 2020. And I think it was a crossroads for a lot of us. We all discovered and learned a lot about ourselves that year. And ultimately, I decided that becoming self-employed was the best choice for me at that stage of my life, both as a mom and also as a, on-air talent and producer who had been yearning for a bit more of a bit bigger of a sandbox, let's say, like yearning for that constant diet of experimentation and perhaps a bit more enterprising. And like, I think at the end of the day, I feel really free being out on my own. And I think this lifestyle suits me.
But it is a challenge because you are on your own and you have to take care of everything from your own taxes to if you hire someone taking care of all of that logistics. So what are the challenges you've run into with that?
It's funny. I just ran into an old friend that I used to work with in New York, and he's an anchor at a big news network, and we were talking about this divide between like freelancer, let's say journalists and media personalities, and people who are kind of locked into that corporate setting. And there are perks and benefits to both because
Oh,
he was telling me, oh, I, I think about like, I look at what you're doing, which is basically just like, freelance, interviewing work. And he's like, I feel like I could do it and I want to do it, but I've just gotten so comfortable working in this corporate setting. Like that is something that happens. And I definitely experience that too. I mean, you've got your benefits, you've got a corporate card, you've got a reliable salary every month. It can be very comfortable. But then on the flip side, you are where I am, which is super liberating. I get to create my own schedule every day. I didn't have to beg a boss to get out of work to come do this interview with you, which is amazing. But I also have to be super aggressive and enterprising and constantly, circling back with, I hate that term, circling back. It sounded so corny as it just came out of my mouth, but just maintaining relationships and pitching yourself. It's a lot of pitching yourself and trying to sell yourself, but I'm always up for a reinvention.
that's cool. I mean, you're right. The thing is, you have control of your time now. When you were working in corporate, you have to be somewhere for, a certain amount of time every day. So that is liberating. But you're also right. It's also you're a hunter gatherer in some ways too.
Yes,
You're
completely.
So last year you went to work at for Reese Witherspoon's company, Hello Sunshine, and
Yes.
started the podcast The Bright Side, which was a daily podcast for the first season. Is that right?
Yes, it was a daily podcast, which was Really fun to get back into that daily cadence. I hadn't done that in a while, after taking that jump to become self-employed, but it was really fun. I launched with a co-host. Her name is Danielle Robay. She's an incredible interviewer and partner, and we had a great time together. But ultimately, we decided that we wanted to make this a weekly show to just be more intentional about the conversations that we have and just bring our listeners a more curated roster of guests. So, yeah, Hello Sunshine is a company that had been on my bucket list for a really long time. For those who don't know, it was founded by Reese Witherspoon, and the idea came to her at this time when she was really disappointed with the kinds of roles that she was being offered, and specifically the kinds of scripts that she was being offered. And she would read these incredible books written by female authors with these really rich female characters and just longed to see those types of characters on the screen. So ultimately, she decided to create a company to do just that. And it's expanded now to a number of different areas. There's Reese's Book Club. There's podcasts like The Bright Side, the one that I host. And of course, they also produce shows like The Morning Show on Apple TV. But what I really endeavor to do with The Bright Side is just provide a bit of exhale from the chaos, the noise, the negativity that we are all bombarded with on our phones every single day, and just really take time to learn how to approach life empowered and with a sense of optimism.
That's amazing. So, but back it up a little. The first season was daily. I mean, that had to be a huge challenge of producing a podcast every day. So, what the difference would be? You are more selective with what you're doing now. Is that a good characterization?
The daily cadence, it's like, I mean, I don't have to explain it to you. Putting together a morning show daily is just, it is a grind, and you cannot fall out of that rhythm. Like, everything has to be so precise in terms of your scheduling and timing. So that was an exciting challenge, thinking about how do you program 5 days of optimistic, uplifting, but also informative and hopefully joyful programming. And I think we did that. We had incredible guests on our first season. Halle Berry came on to talk about menopause, and she's done incredible work outside of her acting career on that. We had one of my childhood idols, Simone, who my entire personality is based off of. She came on the show. Jessica Biel, we have lots of doctors and wellness experts on, and continue to do that this season.
So the daily, were you doing it, were you recording every day for the next day, or were you working ahead?
The way we would do it when it was daily was we would record usually 2 days a week to 3 days a week.
Okay.
And then now with this cadence, it's certainly a lot lighter of a load for me as a host. I still do tons of research on the front end, and there's always books to read and, projects to watch. So it does end up consuming, an adequate amount of time, but I love it. You know what I love about podcasting, Jason, is I get to, like, I just interviewed Matthew McConaughey the other day, right? And when I was an entertainment reporter, I would have maybe 5 minutes with him at a press junket. But for some reason, the movie gods have smiled upon us, because if you are a podcast, you can now get 45 minutes to an hour with someone whose time is really sought after. But for whatever reason, this format, people who are often a bit more inaccessible become a lot more accessible. And just the idea that you get to have like a 45-minute conversation with someone, I really feel like I get to know someone better. I still don't know them, but I feel like I learn so much more about a person through just having a lot more time to chat with them.
100%. It's not the soundbite culture anymore. It's a
Yeah.
long conversation where you actually get to talk about things, and sometimes the conversations go where you didn't expect them to go, and that's the most exciting thing, right?
Yes, completely. I mean, I think that's the best part, is when a conversation just takes on a life of its own, and you're just you're really present and asking follow-up questions. Then before you know it, you're completely off track and off script.
I mean, I have found that to happen I mean, many of the guests I know,
Yes.
but anyway, you still learn something new sometimes, and that's just the fascinating part because people do tend to let down their guard the more you just keep talking. It's funny, you can see some guests completely just relax through the after 10 or 15 minutes, and then it takes on a whole different tone, which I think is lovely. But your show, The Bright Side, I think it's interesting because you don't do just celebrities. You do celebrities, you do business people, you do athletes. So
Yeah.
how do you? What's the criteria for being a guest? What do you look for to be your for your guests?
That's such a great question. If I were to think about the through line that connects all of our guests, and we do speak to a lot of women because the work that Hello Sunshine does is to highlight women's stories. I would say that it's really about agency. It's about women who are taking control of their lives and making bold moves, making bold choices. I always say that despite what we hear in the headlines, and trust me, it is really depressing, I still believe that this is the best time to be a woman because we really are the first generation of free women who were able to decide, you know what, I'm not going to get married. Or, you know what, kids aren't for me. I'm not going to have kids. Or, you know what, I'm going to have a career. I've decided that the stay-at-home mom life isn't for me. The fact that we're able to make those choices now is really empowering. So naturally, I don't even plan it this way, but a lot of the conversations end up there.
Uh-huh.
They end up with people telling me about how they made the most transformative pivot of their lives and how they found the courage to do that and the people who gave them the courage to do that.
That is really true, I think, particularly for women. Because if you think about it, women really weren't in the workforce like they are today until the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So it's not been that long, really. You're probably like the second, third generation of women fully in the workforce. And I think you're right. It does change the dynamic too of your options, I guess, really.
Yeah, completely. Another theme that comes up a lot is this idea of it's never too late. Um, I've interviewed Shannon Watts, who is a prolific author and organizer. She created the grassroots organization called Moms Demand Action against gun violence. And she wrote this book about where she interviewed all these different women who are at, a later, more mature age in their life, but they kind of decide to blow up their life in the best way possible and become an author or become a ceramic artist. So I'm personally inspired by stories of people of any gender who decide that it's never too late for them to pursue their dreams. And that's what this
I
show
think
is about, right?
that is what this show is about. It's about reinvention, whether it's your choice or you got laid off and figured out you have to do something else. But I think we are in a world now where like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to do the same thing forever. You can
Yeah.
reinvent yourself multiple times in your career. And as we are my generation too, I feel like we're working longer or want to work longer or at least be active longer. We're not
Mhm.
really ready for retirement. We're ready to keep doing something else and reinventing. So that's cool that we're kind of on the similar through lines. I love that.
Yeah.
Who are your favorite guests you've had so far?
Hmm. Oh man, there's so many. I mean, we kicked off the first episode of the first season with Reese Witherspoon, and that was incredible. And I'm not just saying this because I work there, but she has personally been really inspiring to me because she has encouraged me indirectly to liberate myself from the trap of other people's perceptions. I think for a really long time, I cared so much about what other people would think of me if I leaned into, a secret passion of mine or, a hidden part of myself that actually was authentic to who I am, but maybe the world wasn't ready to see it yet, or I was scared that they weren't ready to see it yet. And so she has this one quote that's like, the moment that you realize that what other people think about you is not your business, that's the moment you're truly free. I come back to that quote a lot. Like whenever and I aspire to be someone who makes bold choices in my life and takes big swings and takes big risks. So I think about that a lot. Just like it's not my business what other people think about me. So I would definitely say Reese Witherspoon. I would
Well,
say
she seems like a lovely person. She just seems like she would be somebody you would want to go to dinner with or hang out with or talk about books with.
yes, she's so smart. She's so smart. She's such a great storyteller. She knows stories so well. And I think she just has this razor sharp POV on Hollywood, the future of Hollywood, and where women fit into that picture. Like for the longest time, she has had her finger on that pulse. So she really is a thought leader in that sense.
I think you're 100% right. I mean, she and Nicole Kidman are doing such amazing work, and Jennifer Aniston too, about creating content and being thoughtful about it, and books that probably wouldn't have gotten made into, TV or movies. And I think that's really encouraging for the future too, because executives tend to be afraid of anything that's. It kind of goes back to what you were talking earlier. They say they want to do something different, but they really don't. They're really afraid to do anything else different.
Yes. I know I'm not supposed to be asking you questions, but I'm sure you experienced that frustration being a news executive for many years, wanting to try things and then having certain limitations, whether for budget reasons or otherwise.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I tried to push it as much as I could to do things differently, or not even my ideas, but let people do things as and that's the unique part of KTLA. But it was funny
Yeah.
because we would like every 2 years we would get a new set of bosses, and it took them a while to catch on to what we were doing. So
Yes.
it was a challenge, but I feel like we just kind of tried to push it as far as we could, and like we had a little daily online newscast too. I think started in like 2018 as well, and it was fine. And then after I left, the next guy killed it because he didn't quite get
Yes.
it.
That's how it works. Yeah, there's so much turnover, but all in all, I have to say KTLA was absolutely the best local news station that I worked at.
Well,
Jason,
thank you.
I don't know if I could swear on the show. The stuff I have seen in New York City as a local news reporter, whoo, it is coming to KTLA. It was like, oh my gosh, they have free coffee for me. They have a coffee machine and cups. We didn't have cups in New York. Okay.
That's funny.
You think you get to the number one market and you're going to have, everything you need. Not true.
That's funny. So, what else do we have to look forward to on this upcoming season of The Bright Side?
So many incredible conversations, I hope. I hope a lot of laughter. Humor is something that is becoming more and more important to me personally, just to cope with being an adult in 2025. So I'm always looking for ways to laugh and incorporate more laughter into my work. But really soon, I will be hosting a live conversation with Chrissy Teigen at Shine Away 2025, which is Hello Sunshine's annual gathering. And that
So
promises to be,
explain what Shine Away is.
yeah. So Shine
It's a big
Away,
event.
it is a major event. Shine Away is a massive gathering of Hello Sunshine fans, Reese's book club fans. Reese is going to be there, of course. There'll be actors and authors who are a part of the Hello Sunshine family, and it's a big celebration where a lot of learning and discovery takes place. I always walk away learning something about women's health, for example, or women's sports. There'll be a lot of discussions on that as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Anytime that I get to do what I do live, that's my favorite. And also live with an audience. I feel like I came into the TV business like 10, 20 years too late because I just love that live audience interaction and being able to feel audiences with you. And we don't have that much anymore. Like TRL doesn't exist. There's no live audiences anymore. I guess talk shows.
So, but I think you're right. These events are really, I think, post-pandemic, these live events and these live, even like the live podcast episodes, I think these are getting really popular because I think people missed that collective, and even with the streaming world, I think people miss that collective experience. So I think it's going to be I mean, they already are huge successes. This is a huge event. So tell me about you're interviewing Chrissy Teigen as part of the event.
Yes, I am having a conversation with Chrissy Teigen about health. She's going to be opening up about her family's health journey. She has a son who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I also have another friend in my life whose son is impacted by that. And my gosh, these parents of children with type 1 diabetes are truly warriors, because it's, constant finger pricks and just uncomfortable medical treatments. So we will be talking about that, but also how she takes care of herself as a mom, like how she takes care of herself as a caretaker. I think that's a really important conversation to have as well, to not forget about our caretakers.
That's true. And if you don't take care of yourself, then you really can't take care of anyone else either. So
Yeah,
that's great. And that is
exactly.
October 11th, right, at Universal City?
Yes, Shine Away 2025 is going down October 11th and 12th at Universal Studios in Universal City, California. And we do still have tickets available. You can go to shineaway.hello-sunshine.com to get tickets.
I was looking at the website yesterday, and it looks like a great event, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is. I go to a lot of conferences, and this one just feels really warm and inviting. A lot of times you go to a conference and you're like, I don't know if I can slide in here into this conversation and talk to someone or introduce myself. But I've always found that everyone responds with such warmth at Shine Away.
I think Reese is so smart about having, the company is Hello Sunshine. Your show's called Bright Side. This is called
Yes.
Shine Away. I think the branding and the keeping the theme going of being that kind of brightness and sunshine is super smart.
Yes.
So what's next for you? Where do you see yourself, your career going?
Great question. I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier about how nobody works in the same job for 40 years anymore, I am definitely, if you look at my resume, that is me all the way. I mean, I've been at most jobs for about 4 years, some less for sure. But now I'm in this place where, okay, I have checked off a lot of boxes. My news career took me to places I never could have imagined, places I only dreamed of. And so now it's like, okay, what do you really want to do with your life? And how do you really investigate that? So something that I've actually always wanted to do for the longest time is political comedy. And I got to experiment with that a little bit at NBC News on Signal. I would write these comedic monologues that offered information, but hopefully a little bit of perspective and hopefully a little bit of laughter too. So political comedy is something that I have been experimenting with. I have been training as an improviser for the past 3 to 4 years. I have been writing sketch comedy, taking writing classes, trying to just really be disciplined about taking this on as a craft and really respecting the art of writing sketch comedy. And I'm just experimenting and playing around with it and seeing where it goes.
Wow, that's cool. I could totally see you doing that. I think you would be really good at that. That's I can't wait to see it.
Thank
Yay!
you. Thank you so much. Never too late to reinvent.
All right, I know you're busy, so I appreciate you spending some time with us today, and thank you so much, and I wish you well.
Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you for having me. Congrats on this amazing show.
Thank you. Can't wait to see her comedy routine. I love it when people reinvent themselves. As we said, there are still tickets available to the October 11th Shine Away event. I'll put the website in the notes, or just Google Shine Away event. On the next episode, my good friend Olson Ebright talks about how to make a difference in your neighborhood through hyper-local politics, making a difference at the grassroots level. All right, please give us good ratings and reviews and share with your friends. Until next time, thank you.